Hello everybody, Anthony is here. In this video I will talk about how to apply volumetric material to create some kind of abstracted concept creatures, concept designs, and how to get the best result out of it and how to experiment with that. I think criticals here is really crucial to have. And I will start this video by talking over a time lapse of how I created this guy, and then I'll drop it inside Keyshot and show how I rendered it. One thing about the background photos, I was using two reference photo packs to find good lighting. So I wanted to find an easy lighting, and it was essentially just a misty one because I wanted to get the whole misty removed. So the first photo pack was Misty Coast, and I've used it in the second video that will come out pretty soon. And the first one is essentially these foggy trees. There's also another one that probably is great to explore some huge walking beasts, stuff like that, huge walking creatures. This is essentially the city in mist, I think Vancouver in mist. And yeah, maybe I'll do something about it as well in the future. So this is the introduction, so let's get to it. Okay, so you start just with the ball and then use the move tool to drag out all the shapes out. So I have symmetry on the X, and then I use the cuff tool with different alphas like square alpha and round alpha to quickly shape up something, shape some kind of idea here. So I'm trying to get some kind of walking shape, person doing a movement, human figure doing a movement, and I'm really liberal with the volume. I really want to introduce as much noise as possible, because the more I do, the more stuff there will be for Keyshot to add, because if it's really noisy, it will really help the cloud shade inside Keyshot. So, and 3D Code is amazing for that reason, because you can introduce all this noise, which is kind of good kind of polygonal noise. It's not too distorted like in others, if you were to do it in another sculpting software. So now I'm using move tool and just trying to shape all this kind of sculpture in place. So I kind of got the basic and major shapes in there, and just trying to get some kind of hand in. It's really quite abstract, just an expression of how I feel about it. And now I turned on the symmetry on, and then I turned it off. So just to shape this kind of head. And now we kind of have pretty decent shape right now. I could already drop it inside a Keyshot and deal with it. So here I'm doing a cloud layer. So I was thinking at the time that it would be cool to also create this cloud, so like volumetric stuff, where I'm using this here stencil to cut off all the bits, and then I'm using the move tool to get all this like smoky patterns, smoky mist stuff around. It didn't kind of work out in the end. It didn't look that great when I rendered it out, but it could be a thing that you might try at larger scale and introduce more noise to get more cool stuff. I think I haven't really explored it enough to have a good show. So I've imported this obj mesh inside Keyshot and just snapped it to the ground. You can see I've already applied the material. You can find the material in scattering medium, and it's really straightforward. So I picked one of those, like scattering medium. Yeah, it says like it's the same material as already in use. By default, you get something like this, super thin and not really exciting. So you really have to play around with the density, and it all depends on the scale of your object. So this object is fairly small, and what I'll do, I'll increase the density to like 4, and it will automatically increase everything. So transparency distance is a bit too fast, so too much, so I'll put it at like 2 centimeters, and that's probably way too little actually. So we'll see some kind of, yeah, you can see pretty much the whole mesh, so it's just way too little. If I put it at 10, it's getting better. Probably need to drop the density actually down to like 1. So now we kind of getting it. I can see there's some noise inside there, like repetitive noise, that it's better to apply a texture. So here, instead of color adjust, I'll go for like noise fractal, and you get a noise overlay on top, which is a good idea to play around with the size of it as well, scale, bigger and smaller. It actually changes everything, right? So here I have to go back inside material properties and change the density to like 3, and let's see what happens. And this should remove that repetitive noisiness that we had just a few seconds ago. And it's so cool that you're actually kind of creating a cloud with the mesh. It's so interesting, and it gives you so much possibilities to play around. And really, it all depends on the mesh that you bring in. If the mesh is too kind of simple and boring, it won't really get much out of it. So I was trying to introduce a bit more noise into this guy in general, and was pretty kind of creative about it. So in the environment tab, I was using the backplate image, obviously. So I have this selected, and you can see it's quite different from the final result. I was also using a different HDRI. I think I was using one of the natural HDRIs right here, like a versus industrial loading bay, whatever. Kind of gets lighting that I needed to have. Or a versus city alley is another one that might be just like foggy lighting. And then once you render it out, and I rendered it out with all the render passes, so I had all the render passes on and as a TIFF, just in case. I actually didn't really use much at all, but I just used the isolated TIFF in the end. You can apply different color corrections, and I'll just jump into that in a second. The thing is that you can see this is quite slow. It's slower than if to render a regular material. It's also you might experience a thing where it doesn't have enough rays to bounce through the volume. So what you want to do is you want to increase ray bouncing quite high. I'm using this jewelry preset. Maybe it's a bit too high. I think like 16 should be enough, but I think 8 or like 6 will definitely produce you just a black smoke. Though it looks kind of fine. Maybe 6 is, well, I played around with different values. I think 6 wasn't that great. And this was my final render, and isolated background. So if I put something behind, you can see how it becomes. So if I play around with the color, you can see the transparency there. Let's make it black. Yeah, usually when you render with a backplate image, that backplate starts to mix up with your like render. So we can see the branches of the trees from the photo that I show through. So that's something like even shadow picks up. Tends to pick up the ground color, and it's a little bit of annoying, the thing that Keyshot does it, but okay, there's not much you can do about it. Also ran it for about 20 minutes at 3000 pixels at size. It's still fairly noisy, so I would recommend to put it for a couple hours to get a really nice render. And here I'm inside the Photoshop final file. So here I have a couple color lookups and color corrections passes. So okay, this is just the photo, this is the render. Then I have a color lookup. I think it's one of the standard ones, like foggy night. It's got a bit of yellow tint there, so I used like saturation node, a saturation layer to remove all yellow stuff. So if you go into yellow, you can see it's just been dropped by minus 100%. And this really helps to put everything together and shows one image and unify it as one image. Then I made all of that into a smart object. I put no extra noise to combine everything together, and then sharp mask just to sharp it a little bit with this like an overlay over this. Let's see what's that. It's just a spotlight, what's been put at multiply on top, and obviously just the watermark. And really, this is it. It takes you maybe half an hour to an hour to make something like this, and feel free to experiment with the shapes and creatures and whatever you have, like cloud rabbits, why not? And try it out. It's quite fast and fun way of doing stuff, and I'm really happy now that you actually have the chance of creating something like that in 3D, because I was actually waiting for this quite a long time. I really wanted to play around with some type of fast simulations, and this is one of those. And I think that in years to come it will be way easier, dealing with animated clouds, animated liquids. It will be so cool to play around with that stuff. So, and I also decided to show a couple of these test renders I've done, different shapes and ideas, and they give, so Keyshot volumetric shader kind of gives you sometimes some predictable results, which are kind of cool. And you see this wavy cloud pattern. The render is pretty quick, like few minute renders. That's why they're so noisy. And there's another shape, another kind of abstract walker walking around. There's a big guy going through. So yeah, and there was another shape, another test render. I'll actually use this photo for another one, which is for another video which is coming through, but the guy is different, so I didn't really like how it looks. So I think I came up with a better shape, and you'll be the judge for that. Alright, so this is it, and see you in the next video.